The Chicago White Sox got a little bit of payback, beating the Chicago Cubs on Tuesday night in Wrigley. Luis Robert Jr. returned to the lineup and made his presence felt. He was the difference maker. A solo home run, a blast, really. My co-host from the Good Guys Talk Back podcast, Pat Hester, joins me in just a bit.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Sox. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just search Locked On White Sox. Hey, I'm your host, Nick Morawski, a lifelong, die-hard Chicago White Sox fan, recording this podcast just blocks from the ballpark in beautiful Bridgeport. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Locked On White Sox is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Our Chicago White Sox take on the Chicago Cubs once again on Wednesday. Mike Clevinger will be on the hill. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. If you have been following me on the Good Guys Talk Back podcast, this man needs no introduction, but I will introduce him. He is a dear friend of mine and co-host of the Good Guys Talk Back podcast. I'm going to bring in Mr. Pat Hester to Locked On Sox. Pat, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, buddy. It's good to talk to you. Fly the L tonight. We're your unofficial Sox post-game show. And if you're listening to this tomorrow, the pregame show. So thanks for having me in. I know you were digging the bottom of the barrel for guests. So glad you could find some time for me.
Sure. This is the my penultimate episode. So you have this, I think, might be your third appearance, maybe fourth. You are definitely you've been returned the most of any guest. So.
I'm like an SNL guest.
Yeah.
Do I get a ring or a jacket of some sort?
I'll figure out some kind of jacket for you. I think
give me one of those pins that you're the pin that doesn't mean anything to you, that the Sox gave you with the wrong
with the wrong number on it.
Give me the wrong, and then that'll be my thing that I get.
I will dig it up. It comes with a nice little postcard and everything, so you will get.
Just gonna scratch out to Nick and put to Pat.
I will. I have it tucked away somewhere, so you will get that. Folks, we're going to break down this game from Tuesday. It's always good to beat the Chicago Cubs. Talk a little bit about maybe some team chemistry, team leaders, and kind of fan perspective moving forward throughout the rest of this season. And then, of course, setting things up for Wednesday's showdown, the end of the Crosstown series for 2023. State of the Sox, 48-72, 24 games under 500. Sox beat the Cubs 5-3. Touki Toussaint on the hill, 4 innings, 3 hits, 3 earned runs, 5 walks, 4 strikeouts, a couple of home runs. His ERA 4.47. I'll get to the offense stuff in a little bit. Luis Robert Jr. thankfully returned to the lineup. Pat, it was an exciting game, actually. Cubs got something to play for. Sox need a little redemption here. Stick it to them. How about it? And what that bullpen? What a performance from them.
Yeah, what a performance from the bullpen. Really giving up nothing. A couple of hits here and there. I think it was 5 strikeouts. Between 3 pitchers or 4. Can't remember how many it was now at this point. It's late for me, Nick. But good performance from them. And it is nice to play spoiler. The Cubs, obviously, as you mentioned, have something to play for, and they're in that mode. And they talked about it on the radio today. They're in a mode now of watching scoreboard, but it's a little too early. It's not quite September. They're in the dog days. They came off of a big series win over the Blue Jays after a very disappointing series loss versus a hapless Mets team. So they really had to look at this series against our hapless White Sox as, this is, fresh meat on the table, and you can't let these opportunities slip by when you're really fighting for that third and final wild card spot and possibly a division when the Brewers are really, at the tough point in their schedule. The Cubs have the easy point. And if I was a Cubs fan tonight, I'd be really disappointed in letting this one slip through my fingers.
Yeah, there's something I think to be said about with the way the White Sox are going to be going the rest of the season. There is not a lot to play for. I do believe there's developmental stuff that needs to go on. Pedro might have a different way of thinking about things, but with this team, going up against possibly playoff bound teams, and their opponents, I think there's a little extra juice there. It's not just a couple of teams that, are going nowhere. It's the Sox trying to put themselves up against, a pretty successful team here in 2023. Every win is mattering for those opponents that are trying to get their way into the postseason. So I think that is one of those, you run the 50-yard dash in gym class, go up against the fastest person. You might not win, but you might show yourself something there. By doing that.
Who are you talking to? You're talking to other people out there, right? You're not talking to me.
Yeah.
And a 50-yard dash against anybody.
Figuratively.
Good Lord.
Figuratively.
You know me a long time, Nick. Have you ever seen me really run?
And I've never seen you try to find the fastest person and say, "Excuse me, would you like to race me in lot B?"
Maybe to like the beer stand. I do a race for that, but not in general. Not if there's not a prize at the end of that.
Yeah, it's just I think it's good experience for some of these younger guys on the Sox team, especially going into different ballparks, and there's a lot of energy, high energy, and I think they get amped, they rise up to some of these games because there's a lot on the line, and the Sox have nothing else going on.
Well, I think that's a great point by you, Nick, especially from the perspective of the pitchers that we had on the mound with big crowds and high stake moments like there was tonight. Not so much though for the guys in the lineup, because if you look at it outside of Remillard, this was the opening day lineup that we had expected to see the majority of the season. But again, ravaged by injuries and people being sent down, and Oscar Colas, things like that have changed in the lineup. But this was pretty much supposed to be the lineup every day that was supposed to go out there and get it done. The pitchers have changed, but this was the lineup. So I totally agree with you from the perspective of getting guys out on the mound, getting them some really good experience in situations that hopefully will mean something in the future for this team.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of Tuki Toussaint. I think they're going to give him a serious look. At times, it's like, wow, he's got some stuff. He's got some life on his pitches, but he'll miss a spot. His stuff maybe isn't too good to miss. Where he misses and he gets hurt. Opponents will make him pay. Anderson was not in the lineup, stiff neck, I believe. Luis Robert Jr. returned after dealing with some sort of pinky finger issue after sliding into third base against the Yankees. He missed all of the Milwaukee series except for maybe pinch running in the first game of the series. But nothing really at the plate, and it showed. Could have really used his bat. I mean, he's a difference maker. I mean, absolute difference maker when he is in the lineup. Opposing pitchers have to refigure, their plan against the White Sox. And he made his presence felt, man. That was a bomb, no doubter. He knew it when it left the bat. It did stay in the park, but not too many rows off from leaving.
Yeah, Nick, he's in the point right now, at least in this year. Hopefully it remains this way, throughout the rest of his career. And he continues to become the type of player that we thought we were going to have. The Cuban Trout really is what we were told. And if you miss middle in right now, especially on a hanger, it's a lot of guys are going to hit it far away, but especially him right now being locked on. And when he can go the other way, when he's looking away, and he's got the power to put it out to right field as well, he's a real dangerous hitter, Nick. And you combine that with the speed that he has and being a 30-30 guy that he is, it's quite something that we're seeing. It's unfortunate the rest of the year has really taken away what should be a celebrated year for Luis Robert Jr. And I know Sox fans do it at any opportunity with retweets and all the stuff I saw tonight after the big home run, but it's really been overshadowed by the clubhouse dysfunction, the continual dysfunction of this front office, and the underperformance or underachieving of this team.
Yeah, I want to talk, we might save it for the second segment about some of the things Robert said before the game on Tuesday about, his role as a leader and he's not sure if there are leaders in the clubhouse and, some of the things that Ozzie touched on. And then there was an interesting Scott Merkin article as we continue to always talk about the 2005 team and what kind of chemistry and leaders they had. It was nice to see the Sox manufacture some runs on Tuesday. And the last time they saw Kyle Hendricks, when the Crosstown series was on the South Side, Hendricks just rocked the Sox to sleep. Hendricks was a little off. He still has that nasty changeup when it's working. Sox could have really, piled some more runs on, but it was nice that they got to him and we had a different outcome than the previous time.
Well, Kyle Hendricks, I mean, he's made a career out of really spotting pitches, and he can really frustrate, especially from a viewer standpoint, right, Nick? Because you're looking at it, it's like it doesn't look like it's nothing overpowering. It's nothing that people are swinging out of their shoes and just way late on things. It's just perfect precision and being able to spot a pitch when you need to spot a pitch, and that's what he's made his career on. Now, he's had his struggles over the past. This year hasn't been his best year by far, but he still has that in him, and he showed it the last time we faced him, and this time was a little bit of a different story. But if memory serves, we've always handled him pretty well. And it was good to see them get to him tonight. But he's certainly not the pitcher of old. He may become that again, but guys like him, they don't have to, when they don't have to rely on overpowering stuff and it's just finding your command. I think those guys have a lot longer of a shelf life and a career for the most part. And I still think he can be a very viable pitcher. It's just unfortunate for them. Not so great tonight.
Yeah, thinking smarter, not harder. He cerebral guy. But yeah, it was good to see the Sox kind of have a game plan, perhaps do some homework after what happened to them last time. So when we come back, kind of what's your focus as a White Sox fan for the remainder of the season? And I do want to talk a little bit more about this Merkin article and leadership and the culture stuff that's going on. And where is it? Does it matter? Are we blowing all this up? And even maybe did the Sox trade the wrong guy? So a lot more to get to with Pat Hester in a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by Bunches. Okay, Locked On White Sox fans, I got to tell you about a new app called Bunches. Bunches is a new app built just for sports fans where you can chat sports in real time. Click the link in the show notes description to join the app or go to the Apple App Store and download Bunches now. Telling you, you're going to love these conversations with other Locked On sports fans. Bunches is the place where sports fans chat. A Locked On MLB chat group is on Bunches. Go there now and connect with other baseball fans. Chat with your favorite team. You keep up with the latest MLB news. Have any questions or comments about today's episode? Chat about it in the Locked On MLB Bunch on Bunches. Download the Bunches app today. When you do, our friends at Bunches have featured the Locked On MLB Bunch in the Discover tab. You can also click the link in the description show notes to join the Locked On MLB Bunch community today. White Sox take on the Cubs on Wednesday. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. I got Pat Hester back with me from Good Guys Talk Back, and a lot has been made recently about culture and a changing culture. There are no rules. There is no culture. There is no leadership. Maybe there are leaders. It's just not the leaders we thought they were. Why is Pedro not a leader? I think Luis Robert Jr. was asked before Tuesday's game about being a leader, and it didn't seem like he was somebody that was looking to be a leader, if I understood things correctly. And it didn't sound like he was able to identify any leaders on the White Sox team right now, or maybe he didn't want to, name names or anything like that. Scott Merkin had an article recently on WhiteSox.com, and you will always continue to talk 2005, right? And what for so many reasons why that was so memorable, but it was the group, right? The personalities, the players, and talking about this team, you always bring up just the camaraderie, and you could see it, especially as the season wore on, and all the different characters that were, on that club that you didn't kind of really think much of maybe going into the year. Aaron Rowan or Joe Creedy. And we didn't know what we were getting with AJ Przinsky and Ozzie kind of keeping everything going. In the article, 2005 was a family is what they were talking about. We're good, so let's show it. Guys hanging out after the game, talking baseball, going out and having fun. Are we making too much of all this, chemistry stuff and leadership stuff? I mean, is it just the fact that the Sox are so bad right now? That's where we're trying to, shine a light.
Yeah, it's interesting, Nick. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg. Does the chemistry and the culture come from as a result of your winning, or does your winning come as a result of your chemistry and your culture? Let's look at just very quickly at the 2005 team. They got off to such a fantastic start. They were the first team to 10 wins. They were the first team to 20 wins. First, I remember Hawk every week. It's like the first team to 30, first team to 40. It was, and they were winning so many close games. And that draws a group together. You want to hang out and be friendly with people that you're winning with. When you're losing and it's feeling cancerous and there's pointing of fingers and who's going to lead this group, I don't really want to hang out with you and after the ball game and have a beer or go have dinner with you. I just want to get the heck out of here. This place is miserable. As a lot of people speculate, Tim Anderson saying at first base to Jose Abreu, I think it was, I hate it here. It's like, why do you want to be around when such a losing culture? And you could also look at it as, people or organizations, teams, businesses can say, this is what our culture is. And this is what, what it should be, but it really is only a reflection of who your people are, right? If your people aren't upholding the culture that you want, you don't have a good culture. You can scream from the mountaintops about culture every day, but if the people that you have in your organization aren't living up to those expectations, then you don't have a good culture. And you can't say that this is the culture of the team, because your culture is only a reflection of who the people are. So I think it's a real interesting challenge for this front office, whether it's the people in charge currently or a new regime at some point, knock on wood, to really look at not only talented players and what they can do on the field and what their potential is and what their ceiling is. Well, what kind of character do they have? And I think they really found themselves with a people that are too much alike in their character. Right? They're not any. If you're saying there's not any leaders, there are no leaders. There are no leaders on this team. So you need to find people that fit those molds, and that might require you going out in the market and buying those types of people. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. My focus is definitely on guys that are going to be here in 2024. And I honestly don't even know, perhaps, because there could be a bit of a sale in the off season and during the winter meetings. They might get rid of more of the roster. Pedro Grifol has kind of come under fire a bit. He should be the leader. Where is he at? And how come this wasn't put in place, this culture from day one? Everything that he said when he got hired in the fall and then all throughout spring training, he really won me over initially with all of his words and his comments. And this is what I'm going to do. And this is how we're going to prepare. And it just seems like month after month in the calendar, it's like, well, I don't know why we're not doing those. We're going to start doing them, though, or that needs to be fixed, or that. Where was this a long time ago? So I mean, it's early, but I mean, does Pedro come back, and do you want him to come back?
Well, at this point, I mean, Pedro, I really don't know what kind of manager he is. He's to me, he's had some head scratching, comments as of late in terms of we're not going to give up a win for development in the field when you're 20 plus games under 500 and out of the division race. I mean, it should be all about development at this point. So things he said recently regarding that have been curious to me. I don't really know what kind of a manager he really is. I don't think he really understands what kind of manager he is. Think about it from a perspective of, whatever you do in life, Nick, if you're going to be successful, and I credit my brother Jeff for this. Jeff has always told me if I'm going to do something new, I'm going to gravitate towards people that do this really well. If I'm new at it, and that's who I want to be like. I want to emulate that person. I can't really think of someone that Pedro Grifol has really been able to emulate in his career. I can't remember who managed the 2 years that Kansas City was really good, but outside of that, it's been a
Ned
revolving.
Yost?
Yeah, maybe. But outside of that, maybe it's been a revolving door. And you look at someone that we hold up very high in Ozzie Guillen. Who did he learn from? He learned a lot of his managerial acumen from Bobby Cox and Jack McKeon. So winning managers that had a plan and had years and years of experience. I don't know that Pedro's got someone. Maybe he does. I could be completely wrong, but I don't know if he had someone that he could glean to in those years and say, that's why I want to do it, because that's a guy right there that's done it before, and I believe in him, and he had a plan, and I'm going to emulate him when I get a manager's job.
Yeah, those are great points. I think he's just kind of drowning, and it seems like he's trying to say the right things and things that maybe he thinks fans want to hear, but it's just it's in my opinion, it's just a lot of bad, and it's not all on him. I mean, there are a lot of players, a lot of this roster that just completely underperformed, and you're right, with the statement that you said. Not too long ago, it really starts all the way up at the top with all of this leadership, with all this culture stuff. Like, things are just so misaligned. Like, it needs to get completely redone all the way up to the top. And, Pedro can't shoulder all of that. It can't be all on him.
And let me, it just makes me think of something. I didn't mean to cut you off there,
No,
but
go ahead.
you talk about, we've talked about it on our show before. It starts at the top, and it really starts with Jerry as the leader of the organization. He is the owner. And just recently, he's refused to talk to anybody. He refuses. People have asked him. He was just did an interview with somebody, just talking about Rocky Wirtz, because he eulogized Rocky Wirtz, and he was doing an interview, and I can't remember who was interviewing him now at the time. And the interviewer asked him twice about the White Sox, and he said he wouldn't talk about it. It's like, how can you, as the owner of the team, not talk about your team? Whether you're embarrassed by them or not, you have to show direction. And by you facing the music with the media, which it is Chicago media, it is tough, but this isn't New York. This isn't Philadelphia media here. You can probably, work your way through it and manage your way through it. You've been here long enough. Speak your mind. If you're upset about it, speak your mind and give us a little insight to where you think this organization is going to go over the next several years, unless you just want us to keep guessing and guessing incorrectly too.
The silence is deafening. I mean, he just absolutely has to get in front of a microphone and talk to the fans directly, especially after the type of season that we've had. When we come back, did the Sox hold on to the wrong guy, or did they trade away the wrong guy? And some of our perspectives on crosstown series over the years, and set you up for Wednesday. All that in just a moment. Today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know your part will fit or your money back, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the parts fit just right and they're guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Sox wrapping up this crosstown series here. You know, seeing some stuff recently with Jake Berger and all the fun he's having in Miami, and how they're kind of marketing him, so to speak, down there. And it's good to have Moncada back, swinging the bat. Had a couple hits on Tuesday. Did they get rid of Berger too soon, or is this just like, trade remorse? Berger's having some fun down there, but in the end, what kind of guy is he really going to be? And is there a spot for him on the White Sox roster?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about Jake Berger a lot on our show, Nick, and I know you've talked about it on this show. It's at some point, you were able to sell Jake Berger at his highest value when you were a selling team. There really wasn't a spot for him. I mean, let's be honest. You're not going to be able to move on from Yoan Moncada right now. And Jake Berger, despite what he can do in terms of hitting the ball at the ballpark, really doesn't have a defensive position. And when you've already got a team full of DH first basemen, it's really hard to find a spot for him on your team. Yes, would you love to keep him because of the personality? Because again, he did try hard and he hustled and he worked his butt off, and you love the story. So what I'm saying here has nothing to do with what I feel about him as a fan, but from a business perspective, I think it was the right move. You were a team that was selling. You had to move him out to get pitching and quality pitching in return, and you did that. And it was probably the right business decision to be made. If you could have kept him and moved on from Yoan Moncada and gotten out from that contract, okay, fine. You could have sold me on that. You would have had a defensive liability at third base, but you'd have some thunder in that lineup, which is great, which is a lot more than Yoan Moncada can provide. So I say all that by saying I'd love to still have him on the team, but it was the right business decision at the time.
Yeah, they were just kind of stuck with Moncada, the money that Moncada is going to be getting, and if everything was equal and money wasn't a factor with that, I think I might just keep Berger. He just seems like he might have been, I don't know, a chemistry type of guy. I don't think his glove was never going to be Moncada level, but I don't think he was a huge liability at third base. Like the Sox weren't losing because of his glove.
Mm-hmm.
But if the money was even, I don't know. I think I might have just rode with Berger.
Would you have preferred them try and continue to groom him at second base, or was that just a feature that
was a feature? That was a showcase. There's no way he's a second baseman. We have to fit his bats in the lineup, and maybe that was another team or somebody, some scouts or somebody asking the White Sox, hey, what does he look like at second? Has he played first? Are you willing to try him out there? That's something that we're thinking about with our organization. So that wasn't going to be the spot. It was DH really. And we've got a lot of those hybrids right now, and some that don't want to DH, but that are going to have to DH. So there's even getting rid of Jake Berger. I think there's still a lot of decisions though, roster wise, for this White Sox team heading throughout this year and into the off season. Sox trying to sweep the Cubs during the short 2-game crosstown series. Clevinger is going to be on the hill on Wednesday. I talked about it on the most recent episode, Pat. When you and I were going to a lot of games, and namely Cubs Sox games, if somebody had access to tickets, you would say, look, give me I'll pay for the Cubs Sox ones. That's what everyone would circle on their little pocket schedule, their calendar, their magnetic schedule, whatever they had handy way back when. And it was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday thing. It was in the heart of the summer. Those were must attend games. They were jam packed. They were wild. At least I thought they were wild, maybe because I was making it wild by some of the choices that I went through. But Tuesday and Wednesday, kind of middle of the week, as the summer's winding down, it just feels odd, you know.
It is. It's a weird feeling. I don't get, even when the Sox were, playing well 2 years ago, feels like, it was 2 years ago. It wasn't a series really I got juiced for anymore. Maybe a little bit more of a, angst about it, if there was a close game, because it did mean a little bit more. But I mean, I wouldn't miss at least, I would go to at least 1 or 2 games on the South Side every time. I don't go to Wrigley Field anymore. I don't believe that I'm allowed in that building, but that's for another podcast on another day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure.
But it just doesn't really do it for me. And remember when it was cool, and this didn't last very long, but they'd play, like you'd mentioned, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they do it one week, and then the next weekend, then it was like back-to-back weekends.
Great.
So it was like 2 weeks of hype. You go hype, you into the weekend, see how that goes, and you're getting reaction, and then you're getting geared right back up to get back into the fire. And it was one of those things where the old saying, throughout the records, when these two teams get together, and over the years, I don't know what the current record is, between the two teams, but that was something I used to watch too. Who's got more wins than losses?
Sure.
And it was Sox for a long time, and then the Cubs had their run, obviously, and a lot of success in the, in this 15, 16, 17, 18 time period. And then it was Sox again playing better. So those are the things, but I couldn't tell you now. I mean, I used to be able to spit it out like, oh, Sox are 55 and 52 against the Cubs, or whatever it would be. Now I couldn't tell you what that number is.
I think there's something that happened for me when both teams got their World Series. Then it was like, okay, they can actually win. They can put together successful teams, and they can get results in the postseason, and they can get to a World Series and win it. So it's not just merely about, well, this is all we have in our season is to beat the Cubs. It's like, well, I want more than that, of course, as a Sox fan. And I'm assuming Cubs fans want that as well, not just to beat the Sox. It's like, well, wait a second. We can be a very good team and go well beyond just, claiming that we won the Crosstown Cup. It's like, no, we can get into the postseason and maybe get to a World Series. We've done it before. And I think I feel a little bit like that could have played something into my interest of, yes, I want to absolutely beat the Cubs, but I've got bigger, expectations for my Sox team, and obviously not happening this year, but that's where we were during this contention window. It's like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Those are big series, but no. I'm looking beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it gives the Crosstown still does give me this. It gives you that opportunity to daydream about the day, if and when it comes, when these two teams meet for the ultimate prize, and what this town would be like, the suburbs, the surrounding area, and how it would be covered nationally, which I think it would be great if they would ever square off in a World Series, and how fun and anxiety ridden that would be for the 2 weeks or whatever that would take place.
Yeah, we've been waiting for the return of 1906 for a long, long time, and it just I thought we might get it there, but I think the Cubs are trending in the right direction. The Sox, I think, are going to take a couple steps back here, but looking forward to Wednesday. Hopefully the Sox get that sweep. Pat, my friend, you have been so supportive of this lockdown experience of mine, and looking forward to getting back to just creating some good content with you on Good Guys Talk Back.
Buddy, you've done a fantastic job. I can't tell you how much and how proud I am of you for doing this for everybody, because a lot of people I know, they've told you, may not catch every inning, every game, and watch it as intently as they'd like to, but they know they can rely on you to break it all down the next morning for them and give them give them your opinions, your very astute opinions. And you've done this podcast proud. So my hat's off to you, my friend.
Thank you very much, buddy. Yeah, we'll be chopping it up Sunday nights as we tend to. We've got our own little YouTube channel. Appreciate a subscription, appreciate a follow, and the audio is everywhere. We've been doing it, man, 5 years. So that's kind of Pat and I. For those that don't know, we went to college together, went through radio broadcasting together and TV, and have known each other for well over 20 years. So lifelong Sox fans, and it's just kind of a labor of love and some good therapy most Sunday nights. So Pat, thank you again, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Folks, thank you so very much for making this podcast part of your daily routine. You can find the Locked On White Sox podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts. We're on Twitter at Locked On Sox. You can find me on Twitter at Nick_GGTB. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Questions, comments to lockedonsox@gmail.com. Southsiders taking on the Northsiders on Wednesday in Wrigley. Catch every pitch of the White Sox hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search White Sox. Thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day. And hey, everydayers, you know who you are. I absolutely appreciate it. On the next episode, I will recap you on the Crosstown series, and I will sign off for the very last time on Locked On. Appreciate you making time for the Locked On White Sox podcast. I'm Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.